is it clear, that Tonglen thing? Bad stuff in, good stuff out. If you feel resistance, then that's it, you got your self-cherishing that is afraid. You got it. Then you can give it a form. The form is usually described as a black rock, that when the bad stuff hits it, it goes, ah, and it runs away. It can also be in Pham Monash, where we did the whole weekend on Tonglen, came up with something different, which is quite nice also, because the good stuff actually, the compassion and wisdom, all this is already there. So the self-cherishing is just like, the full moon. In India, the full moon is seen as a representation for bodhicitta, the mind who wants to benefit all sentient beings, knowing that they have to attain enlightenment, kindness, compassion. And for example, in Ayurveda, the full moon is seen as something that decreases your fever. So if somebody is sick in India, and it's full moon night, if they have fever, they put the person outside, so that the moon rays can cool down the fever. I guess, because India also is a very, very hot country, so in the evening it starts to cool down sometimes, so then when full moon comes, because it's true, the light is a bit cooling, the light from the moon. So again, it's a mental thing, but it has an effect on the body. So the self-cherishing is like the black cloud who is hiding that full moon. And same as with clouds, they can dissolve very quickly. Like if you have clouds, the sun comes, then that's it. So you think that the bad stuff, the black things that you inhale, it gets rid of that, makes that cloud dissolve, because it's not going anywhere. It doesn't exist. And then the full moon starts to shine, which is our love, compassion, wisdom, generosity. So this practice of Tonglen has to do with generosity also. We give whatever good we have. Okay, so you just try to sit in meditation. With a straight back, possible not leaning towards the wall if it's possible. And totally relax. Nothing to do, nothing to attain. We have plenty of time to accomplish all these things. Give yourself that time, it's so necessary. It's so complex, you have to hear these things many, many times. But you're here and you're hearing them, so that's great. So rejoice. Also rejoice about having joined the club of, as Limor said yesterday, angels. Because that's true, that's what we want to become. We want to become helpful beings, non-harming beings. So isn't that wonderful to belong to that club? Wow, to have interest, to put effort. It's so rare and so precious, it's so beautiful. You're one of those. So just appreciate that and rejoice. Take a few deep breaths. Wow, I'm alive. I have so many people that allow me to love them, that are kind to me. Just that. So many beings are working for my food, for my clothes, my shoes, my education, my entertainment toys like telephone, tablet, computer. So many beings make it possible for me to have a job. To earn money, to be independent. So many beings look after my health. Doctors, dentists, nurses, people in the labs. So we start to see how much kindness we actually receive, and we do want to replay that kindness, but then we see that sometimes our self-cherishing is standing in the way. We're not really caring about consequences when we're angry at somebody, when we're impatient, when we're jealous, greedy, attached, confused, and so on. So for 5 minutes we just do it in a very general way. Very simple. Whenever you breathe in hot, sticky, dark, yucky, heavy, the form of black smoke or black stuff. When you breathe out all the good stuff, form of light, healing, cooling, smooth, whatever applies to you, whatever speaks to you, whatever attributes of what you're breathing out speaks to you. So we just do that for a while, if you want. Don't bring it down to the self-cherishing yet. Just say, okay, bad stuff is coming anyway. But so many difficulties already in my life, I overcame them all. Negative karma gets purified by this. I can develop compassion, patience. Whatever wants to come, let it come. You breathe it in. May it come right now. I have so many things I can rejoice about. So many things in my life that are really good. I give that away. I don't want to keep it just to myself. I give it away. And you breathe it out. So do that for 5 minutes. Again, if you have problems doing in the bad stuff, out the good stuff, you can first visualize that you're breathing out all your good things. Let's say 10 breaths or something like that, and then you just do in breath. You just concentrate on the in breath. Whatever suits you better, it's fine. is saying that whatever unhappiness, suffering, frustration, not getting what we want that happens in our life is a ripening of karmic actions when the self-cherishing was present, when we were not concerned with the happiness of others and we were just concerned with our own happiness. In order to see the disadvantage of self-cherishing, it's good to think about somebody that we know they're full of themselves, very selfish, only thinking about themselves, treating people in a very unjust way. Always I'm first and then others, or sometimes even only me, nobody else. When we look at somebody else, we can see that that person is not really happy. If you put a giving, loving, patient person next to that person, if you could choose, surely you would choose to be the loving, compassionate and patient person. And you see that whatever you give this self-cherishing person, the selfish person, it never seems to be enough. They still have a feeling of, I never get anything. And they want more and more and more. So now, the thing is, we see it very easily in others, but when our self-cherishing is operating, we don't really see it like that. We don't see the suffering of the future when these consequences ripen. And we don't even see how it makes us tight, uneasy, unforgiving, uncomfortable. You can think of all the unwanted situations that you will have to face in the future. Your future self. It will not be exactly the same person, but it will be a continuation. If it's in this life, of this body and this mind. If it's in the next life, of this continuation of this mind with a new body. And we see that right now there are things that are unsatisfactory in our life. We do have problems. We have self-cherishing, we have confusion, we have anger, attachment, greed, hatred, and so forth. So you think, I am not important right now, but may my future self be free from suffering. May my future self be well, happy, loving and peaceful. So in whatever form you see yourself as your future self, either very old or tomorrow or next lives, take away the suffering from your future self by thinking these very simple words. May my future self be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Be free from all the bad stuff. And when you breathe in, you draw it out of that future self with your breath. The form of black smoke or just dark, heavy, hot, sticky. And then you visualize bringing that dark stuff down to your heart. Where the self-cherishing, this wrong thought, that one which manifests as real but is just an illusion, where it is sitting like a black rock or like a dark cloud that is covering the beauty of our mind of love, compassion and wisdom. You think when that black stuff hits it, it just disappears, it dissolves or it explodes into 1,000 pieces. And out of that luminous space, give yourself, your future self, all the happiness that you know that you can encounter, all the spaciousness, all the goodness, all the sanity, all the non-confusion, in the form of light, cool, soothing, healing, fresh and healthy. And you just keep doing that. You breathe in the future bad stuff, you breathe out the present and the future good stuff, and you give it to yourself. Now be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May I be well, happy, loving and peaceful. You don't look for results, you don't look what happens while you do it, you just do the meditation if you want to do this. If you don't want to do it, then just do awareness, that's fine. Being aware of your in-breath as in-breath and out-breath as out-breath. Whenever the mind moves away, very simply you just bring it back. If you combine in-breath and out-breath with the visualization, you might notice it's much easier to stay on the breath. So it's another way of making the mind stable. It's just another tool. On top of it, it goes against our habit of seeing ourselves more important than others. Or that my happiness is more important than other people's happiness. All the fears, all the anxieties, all the difficulties that you think you could encounter in the future, you take it upon yourself right now. All the goodness, all the happiness that we are so grasping for and trying to keep it, we totally give it away. Breathing in, taking the suffering, you practice compassion. Breathing out the goodness, you practice love. By breathing out, you can really give yourself whatever you wish for. Because very often when we start to do this practice, we don't even know what we should give ourselves. Or we think it's selfish. Or it's not selfish. If you're happy, if you're well, this is a great gift for the world. Because when you're happy and well, you're not harming anybody. Negative emotions have not such a big chance to arise when you're well and happy. well and happy, directly you help yourself by being like that. Indirectly, you help others because you're not destroying their peace of mind with your negative emotions. Then you can start to be creative. Like, for example, you see yourself as an old person. And we might notice that we can't imagine getting old. Like a person in an old people's home. It's difficult. We don't want to. Self-cherishing doesn't want to recognize that the body and the mind will age. Because this self that we cherish seems to be permanent, unchanging. This is why I cannot accept change. We're going against the law of nature. We don't want to age, we don't want to die. So then see yourself as that old person again if you want. And look what you're afraid of. Maybe becoming bitter, impatient, depressed, abandoned, dement, not being able to walk anymore. Try to feel that fear. Don't run away from it. You take away all these things that make you so afraid from that old person in the form of black smoke. It makes the self-cherishing explode, and we breathe out everything we would want to have when we are old. Courage, patience, being wise and lucid. Don't know if it will happen, but at least we lose the fear of these other things that very, very often come with old age. You see, if we are afraid of them already now, it spoils the joy in our life. So when we're ready to take it now, we will slowly, slowly, not immediately, but slowly, slowly lose the fear. And then we appreciate that we're not like that yet. And when it comes, we will be able to accept, and we will be very easy to look after. But try to feel the resistance of taking the suffering of this old person. And then it's difficult. We can think, okay, I feel resistance. Most probably, most of the other people as well. So I take upon myself also the resistance of the others. Who is resisting is the self-cherishing, because fear does not prevent us from becoming like that. it actually creates it even more. And then you breathe out light. That might be acceptance, courage, patience. Can go to your future lives, to start to make plans. Where do I want to be reborn, or as what do I want to be reborn? So it's quite good to make these plans, because at the time of death the mind might be very confused and weak. So if we put these imprints on the mind already now, they might guide us. We might develop a thought that then at the time of death will be very helpful. It doesn't really matter where I am reborn, as long as I can be of benefit to others and continue with this path. So that's what you would breathe out. That kind of very sane, strong, stable thought of bodhicitta. And you breathe in all the fear, all the panic, all the confusion of the dying person. That's strong, so again, don't force yourself. Try it out if it's possible. Because what will happen then also at the time of death, if you start to feel confused, fearful, frightened, and panicking, your mind automatically will start to do Tong Leng. You think, I'm not the only one who's dying right now. So many other people are in the same situation as I am. They're also frightened, confused and panicking, so I take their suffering upon mine. And then your mind is anchored and stable again. When you breathe out all your positive energy that you have created in this life. So this is how we use the difficult situation of death and old age in order to transform the problem into a practice on the path. And after death comes rebirth. If we're not fully awakened, we will encounter the same problems that we have in next life, that we have already now, like birth, old age, sickness, death, not having what we want, having what we don't want, losing things that we're attached to, and having desires that are far too high, and having these body and mind who carries with it the potential to go into the suffering of pain. The potential is always there. We also have the suffering of change, that whatever we build up, it always falls apart, nothing really satisfying forever. A mind that never has enough happiness because it looks in the wrong place. It finds the wrong happiness, it finds pleasure and easy life instead of love, compassion and wisdom. We will have uncertainty in that life. Whatever we build up, it just can fall apart, not only when we die, but also already during our lifetime. We can lose our friends, our health, our mind, our money, our so-called security. It's all very unstable. So we will have negative emotions. We will have confusion about what emptiness is or is not. And then you can think, I take the suffering of that person of the future lives upon myself right now, and I give that person well-being, happiness, unconfusion, unattachment, non-aggression, love, compassion and wisdom. You see yourself being reborn in the place or in what situation you want to be reborn. Rebirth is created by the mind, not by the Buddha or by some other higher force. So if we have very clear intentions, and if we know what causes create that kind of rebirth, then we have a good chance that it will happen. We can shape our future. Usually when we do this meditation, it's really good to just sit up with a straight back as we do in meditation. We let the bad stuff come, we give the good stuff away. We're not afraid of anything. It is to increase your courage. Your suffering will come whether we want it or not. We meet it with courage. It's just pain or a hassle. It's not suffering. We cringe up and are afraid, then it becomes dukkha, suffering. Dedicate all the positive energy that we have created to doing this Tong meditation with ourselves. And we will be able to very, very quickly recognize what these wrong views are, that this I that appears, and then we grasp at it for real, and then we cherish it, that it doesn't exist the way that it appears. Maybe able to cut through that confusion with these very powerful methods. Maybe first be able to decrease it, and then finally eliminate it, so that we can be of benefit to all sentient beings. So whatever happens to me, whatever I do, may it always be of benefit to all other beings. Not just my family and my friends, but to all other sentient beings. Okay, then we can stop. Just to finish with a story of people who do that when they're in extreme moments of suffering, is like the Tibetan Lamas who were in Chinese prison, tortured by the Chinese. There's one that I knew personally. He's reborn. He must be like maybe 6-7 years old now. Ribu Rinpoche, but I had very close contact with him in Dharamsala. You could just go down and have a cup of tea with him. He was living down at the temple. We went on pilgrimage with him. Then he wasn't very famous until Richard Gere kind of discovered him. So we had him to ourselves. Then Richard Gere took him to America. So he didn't want to go, but then he went anyway. That was also very funny because we came with Richard Gere, and we told him that he's a very famous actor, that all the women kind of go for him. It was like 15 years ago. So Rinpoche, he already had grey hair. So Rinpoche was looking at him and said, "What? That one? But he's all grey. What do women see in him?" Yeah. So Richard Gere told him that he would like to invite him to America, and that he would build a villa for him so he could live there. So Rinpoche said, "How much would that cost?" So he said 2 or 3 million. They said, "Wow, if you have that kind of amount of money," he said, "you know, in the south of India, there's the monasteries with all the monks. They have no health insurance. If they get sick, they cannot get treatment. If you want to invest so much money, why don't you invest it in an insurance?" And he did. Out of that came what is called the Gere Foundation. So he did a lot of good things with his money, and also he built him a house. So then he moved to America, and then he had cancer, and he died in 2004 maybe. 2006. Anyway, so he said when he was tortured by, he was 20 years, he was in prison, tortured by the Chinese, and that was his main practice. He was tortured, and he would take the suffering, the future suffering of the soldiers who tortured him upon himself. And he said, the more I did it, the more it worked, the happier I became, and the more they beat me. No, he came to Dharamsala, and then he went to America. Huh? How old he was? Oh, I don't know, 80 something. Why? But in the prison, he did that practice. Because you see, they all have this view. Why can they torture me? This view is firmly there. It's like the same view that I have if I eat too many chips, because I love it. I love oily stuff. Next day I have a headache. So what? Do I complain about the people who made the chips? I don't complain. I bear the headache. I know that I created the cause. So I'm not blaming anybody. I blame myself, but also I'm not saying, "Hey, you stupid," and all this. I go like with wisdom and say, well, if you don't want to have a headache, you need to stop eating the chips. It's as simple as that. And the Tibetans, the older lamas, they have this view. It's automatic. They know that. It's so firm that there is no other way than whatever good happens to me, result of actions, positive actions. Whatever suffering happens to me is a result of negative actions. So therefore, it's my responsibility. So they are in the situation, and they look, what can I do now? So he is in prison. He is being tortured. There's no way he can get out. But he can develop compassion for the future victims. And then he doesn't suffer. There's only pain. And he said, I saw that this really works. It was fantastic. This is the only way we can find out. When you do it in an extreme situation and all of a sudden you feel like, and this whole falls apart, you still have pain. You see, for us, pain and suffering goes together. It's not. We put it together because we don't see the purpose of it. So he said, these Chinese soldiers, they helped me to purify my negative karma very, very quickly. And they helped me to develop compassion for difficult people. And when you knew him, you know, you would just melt. When you were in his company, he was amazing. You would feel so safe, and he was so funny. When one of us would complain about something, you know, little things, but for us it was a big thing. Like Venerable Antonio, no, it wasn't Antonio, it was somebody else. Another monk said, oh, have they sent me to Australia? I don't like Australia, it's hot and humid and then he would start to tell us a story how they tortured him. You know, he wouldn't say, well, you know, appreciate the good thing. He would just say, I remember one day what they did, they tied my hands behind my back and they left me like that for a few days. I couldn't sit down properly, I couldn't lie down, I couldn't pull down my pants to go to the toilet. I was pee-pee caca all in my pants, and they just left me like that for a few days. And then going to Australia seems a very little thing. You know, he said they tortured me in such ways that you can't even imagine. And he had absolutely no hate and no anger towards these people. So you see, when I see people like this, I want to become like them, because if we get tortured, that's it, you're there. There's no way you can escape it if you're in prison. And who puts you there is our self-cherishing. He said the time in prison was my happiest time because I saw that this works. There's pain, but there's no suffering. So you see, the situations that we have, we take very small ones. Like they also started training with small situations, so then when the emergency comes, they can do it. I was at the dentist at one point, and I was doing Tong Leng. I took all the suffering of all other beings at the dentist. Itai, what is it? Are you still with us? Hello? Itai, are you still with us?
So,
huh?
I will.
Okay, so try to sit up also. Chair. This is why I'm sitting on a chair, because I cannot sit on the floor.
Thank you.
So we adjust also. So I was doing that. I was doing Chong Leng at the dentist, and then the dentist asked, "Doesn't that hurt?" I said, "Yes." So he said, "Why are you not doing? Why are you not saying anything?" I said, "Well, it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't change anything if I say something."